Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down the sources behind the stories.
You know, the end of the year is always a total sprint in Washington. It's just a flurry of activity, right? The final days of December often see major announcements, bills getting signed into law, and some last-minute vetoes.
So, we're going to walk through several key actions from the last week of 2025. And we're going to do it using only the White House's own words and documents to see what it all tells us about this administration's priorities. Okay, let's dive into this. First up, we'll look at the federal purse and two very different decisions that were made just days apart. The administration announced what it called a historic $50 billion investment through the Rural Health Transformation Program, with funds set to go to all 50 states. The stated goal was to strengthen the rural health workforce and modernize facilities. It represents, in the administration's own words, the largest federal investment in rural healthcare in American history. But just as this major spending was announced, the administration took a really hard line on a much smaller local project. The president vetoed a bill concerning the Arkansas Valley Conduit, which is a water pipeline project down in southeastern Colorado. Now, this project has a really long history. Its financial obligations have been changed multiple times over the decades, going all the way back to 1962. So what's really interesting here is the direct contrast. The bill was trying to ease the financial terms, but the White House framed it as a completely unfair burden on national taxpayers. And the veto message concluded by really emphasizing the need to restore what it called fiscal sanity. All right, let's move to the international stage and see how this builds. The week also saw some pretty significant moves on trade policy. The administration took action related to tariffs on imported timber, lumber, and other wood products. You know, things like furniture and kitchen cabinets. Now, the entire basis for these tariffs is something called a Section 232 investigation. This found that an over-reliance on foreign wood products could jeopardize U.S. defense capabilities and economic strength. So the crucial point here is that the administration is using the threat of higher tariffs as leverage in ongoing trade negotiations. They delayed a planned increase from January 1, 2026, all the way to January 1, 2027. But hey, trade policy wasn't just about tariffs. A more routine proclamation extended a trade agreement with a key partner. This action makes sure that specific duty-free quotas for Israeli agricultural goods continue. It's a technical move for sure, but an important part of maintaining the trade relationship. The week's actions also involved big decisions about federal land, with two different bills meeting completely opposite fates. First, the president signed the La Paz County Solar Energy and Job Creation Act. This directs the sale of federal land to the county at fair market value. However, a bill that would have required the Secretary of the Interior to help safeguard a tribal community from flooding was vetoed. And this brilliantly illustrates the specific rationale they gave. The veto message directly linked the decision to the tribe's opposition to the administration's immigration policies. So what can we take away when we look at all these actions from just a single week altogether? This table really summarizes the week. We see a philosophy of making large, strategic investments paired with vetoes of smaller projects, which are justified by fiscal discipline or, in one case, some pretty explicit political reasoning. It leaves us with a central question, doesn't it? What principles guide the choice between massive investment and strict fiscal austerity? The documents from this 1 week show those decisions can be complex, and the justifications, well, they're pretty varied.